situation. My name is Marlo Brook, and I'm the CEO and founder of Avatar Partners. I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Steve McNally, co-founder of DVE Holographics and one of the world's foremost experts in the global virtual workplace. Avatar is also a premier partner of DVE Holographics and one of our favorite partners. So we're really honored to have you here. So, our company has spent, 17 plus years developing software and augmented reality and immersive reality products and services to global 1,000 corporations and government. And, we can write tomes on technical best practices. But let's get back to the basics of what is a business. A business is a team of people. And people are the most important thing in any business. If it weren't for people, businesses wouldn't exist. I think we can all agree on that. So when we consider a virtual workplace that will maximize productivity for the organization, we need to understand what truly motivates people to perform at their best. And as we need to look at it, not just from a standpoint of, a short-term epidemic, but for the long term. So what do people want? What do people need? If you're a Star Wars fan like me, you might know Matthew Stover, who, for his awesome Star Wars series of books, he really understood the importance of teamwork, the importance of community. Teamwork makes work fun. And working alone it's okay and it's doable. We can all do it for a while, even us introverts. And I am definitely a self-proclaimed introvert. But a lot of people get stir crazy when they go for long stretches of time not interacting with their coworkers. And how does the psychology, the need for human connection, get impacted by a totally virtualized workforce? Does it crush the employees? Does it degrade their performance? Does it make them unaccountable? So the good news is that there is actually technology today that improves the productivity and satisfaction specifically designed for the virtual workforce. So top 10 keys. I know you're waiting on your edge of your seat to know what these are, and these, I figured I'd show them early on. So these are the top 10 keys to employee engagement. And we're going to be going through each one of these one by one and talk about the optimal, what's needed and the optimal technology available today to optimize your virtual workforce to make sure that the organization is getting what it needs as well as the employees. And our subject matter expert, Dr. Steve McNally, has studied this field for over 30 years and has a lot to share about how to enable companies to support these top 10 as well as why. Number one, so it's important to all of us to be an important and integral part of an organization. It starts with knowing that I matter. It matters that I exist. In technology, in our industry, we have, I would say, more introverts perhaps than in other industries. But first imagine, you see on the left there, someone alone and, in their VR goggles and just kind of over the isolation. And the second picture actually comes from philanthropyu.org. Talking about the importance of community during COVID, but you see these sort of mishmash pieces. It's kind of showing that, yes, we need to be connected as a team, but doesn't really show us being connected. So how do we really get back to that sense of community, knowing that we are an important part of the team, whether we're on site in an office or virtualized? So the question is, important and integral. Does watching people in a box encourage positive morale for the long term? Question. I'm sure you as the audience have a lot of very strong opinions about this. What are the other options? Are there other options? And in fact, yes, there are. So this, on the other hand, is a huddle room where everyone you see here is working from home. And yet look at how integrated the team is. Here's another larger experience of that. So Steve, please tell me more about the human factors behind what we're showing here and the why and the how of what you designed.
Sure. So it starts with thinking about how do we really communicate with each other in person. And then we just simply extrapolate each one of those situations. So if someone walked into my office, I would want someone to look like they're sitting on the other side of the desk. If they walked into a meeting room, I'd want them to look like they were just sitting on the other side of the table. So that's our beginning parameters in our design. Then that creates other issues. We don't want people to look like they're on a TV set hanging on the wall. We want them to feel as if they're right there in the room, sharing the space right across the table from us and affecting correct eye contact and so forth. So those are our fundamental parameters there, is we just want to simulate what's really there, and technology should really disappear. That's the goal. We don't even want people to think about technology. We want to think about the people that are right there.
Absolutely. Really good point, Steve. The second point is number 2, making a positive contribution. So Jackie Robinson was the first African American to play in Major League Baseball in the modern era. And he's talking here about what I do matters, what I do makes a difference. So, moving from that concept of, making a positive contribution, many of us right now are in this odd and new situation of working full time while partially homeschooling. And I'm sure this picture resonates with some of you. It certainly does with me. I don't need to tell you about the frustrations that this situation causes, but there is a reason. Statistics consistently find that both men and women are not good multitaskers. And when we diffuse our focus, we do, a lot of things good, but not great. And, we know that we can do better than we normally are, but we're being diffused by all these other factors. So this affects self-esteem, actually. As Jackie Robinson said, we value ourselves based on what we do and what we contribute, whether good nor bad. That's how we do it. And companies need to recognize this and give employees the solutions and the tools that greatly reduce and ideally eliminate multitasking between home and work, and do that while working at home. Doing so also with positive reinforcement will optimize productivity. So here is one amazing example. This woman is working from home. She is feeling and being on center stage through this AR podium solution. And it's allowing this woman to beam into an office meeting or a training room or a seminar, all from her home desktop. So talk about making a positive impact. This stage-like presence engages coworkers and provides totally natural one-to-many communication. So question to you, Steve, what led you to design this, and how have you seen it making a positive impact?
Sure. So as I said before, where we started with someone walks in the office as if they feel like they're on the other side of the desk, or a meeting room, the other side of the table. Well, here's the other side of like a classroom or a training facility or even a stage with a CEO. Of course, augmented reality is the thing that is enabling this experience to feel like there's someone who's been freed from the TV set and they're placed inside of the room. The experience is really quite stunning. It's taken years to perfect the methodology, but most importantly, it works with standard video conferencing systems. We've utilized this for CEOs on stages, but the things that are most intriguing to us is where we've had, for example, a master teacher in her home who was able to then call into a podium, an AR podium, in a elementary school. And that master teacher was able to not only teach the kids, but the actual teacher that was physically there was able to see the master teacher in action And then when the kids were released after school, the master teacher was able to then actually communicate with the teacher, give them hints and pointers and the rest of that. And the experience is really, you just forget that this is even conferencing, and you really feel like the people are really there in the room. So this is her coming from her home and then appearing on the AR podium.
I tell you, we need to get this product into the school that my children go to ASAP. That would alleviate a lot of pressure.
Right.
So now, proximity builds camaraderie. Now, I realize this picture is not COVID approved, forgive me there, but there are a lot of articles published about, what do employees need the most? And after the basics like food, shelter, money to pay the bills, the overarching need is proximity to coworkers. Proximity builds camaraderie. And that's essential for creativity, for collaboration. And, at Avatar Partners, we have a dynamic that we call the mind meld, where we're literally thinking, we're working so closely together and such camaraderie that we start to think the exact same thing at the exact same time. And we sometimes get to the point in a meeting where nothing really needs to be said because we're mind melded. Everyone's on the same exact page. So, what's the best way to support proximity in a virtual workplace? And I think you have the answer, Steve. What do you have to say about this?
Well, proximity starts with several layers of issues. Part of it has to do with just culture. In our culture, 24 inches, 36 inches when we're standing, talking to each other feels natural. Of course, if you're sitting on the other side of the table or a desk, there's already an expected distance there. But proximity is a real challenge when we get into a virtual organization, because it was determined 30 years ago when the phrase used to be called telecommuting, then it was telework, and it's mutated in different phrases over the years. But essentially, it's a very basic concept. If people are outside the organization, the people who are on the outside don't have the immediacy or the proximity to the people that are inside the organization. And hence they feel disenfranchised. They feel like they can't have the mobility in the organization. They feel like they can't have the kind of camaraderie that's necessary. So the challenge now in a virtual workforce is those who are centralized and those who are on the peripheral, how do we create a level playing field? And that has a lot to do with technology. It has a lot to do with conferencing. It has a lot to do with the culture that is created by the executives in the company on how people use the technology and into what capacity. The ultimate goal is that no matter where anybody is, we can have these moments that just passing someone in the hall or passing someone past their cubicle or their office, and then there's a spontaneous impromptu moment where then two people then can just talk about a project for a second or two, and then all of a sudden ideas get sparked. This is where it's not just a formal meeting where a lot of this productivity happens. This productivity happens in this impromptu thing as well. So in the virtual organizations in the future, we really have to think through that as well.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you just hit the nail on the button right there. I mean, we, as we're moving forward here, making sure that we have solutions for the needs, we may be able to get by avoiding eye contact and using, employee in a box types of solutions, which do have their value, maybe. But the more that we virtually work, the harder this becomes. And a virtual office is full-time, and there are things that grow old very fast. And we have to address these individuals who are going to be having these ongoing virtual offices and make them feel as though they really are part of the team and no different. So here, you have an alternative example. Here you've got a combination of in-office workers and remote workers, and everyone feels equally important. Steve, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, there's several psychological parameters that are working here, issues that are working here. But the fact is, the phone, the notebook, the tablet, the desktop PC, these were wonderful devices, the productivity tools, but they're in no way going to be a way to create a sense of telepresence or a sense of virtual presence with people. They were just never intended for that. So we have to approach the whole design of the virtual space and even the spaces inside of the campuses as well, the corporate campuses, so they all have a similarity as well. And then that way everyone's just feeling like they have the same kind of portals and the same kind of experiences. You know, all of these things, talking about specifically life size, could you imagine how kind of stressful it'd be if a little teeny 6-inch person jumped up on your table and started talking to you? That's kind of like what we're doing. The brain works in, you know, these subconscious cues. And so when we're doing video chat and we're seeing all of these people all at once and we're peering into their space, there's information overload. And recently now with COVID and the whole world has been forced to do video chat as a necessity, what's happened is a lot of articles are being written now about people feeling frustrated, feeling exhausted, feeling fatigued. And this is stuff that we've known as, you know, behavioral research scientists for, you know, decades. And now all of a sudden, as people are using it this much, they're realizing, wow, you know, even though it's amazing that we can have access to these online platforms, the reality is the actual experience itself needs to be greatly improved if it's ever really going to replace in-person interaction.
Absolutely. And when you said the 6-inch person, I thought to myself, really, you know, a lot of times I see a 6-inch head. I see their head. It's definitely not natural. So 90% of body language is nonverbal, and we need to be able to read these human cues. It's very important to us to, you know, someone's breathing rhythm, someone's very subtle eye movement or eye roll, or, you know, these things can be extremely subtle, and it's really hard to see that through standard videos that we have today, you know, for most of us. So Steve, can you talk to us about these alternative solutions and how they can impact the employee and benefit the company?
Sure. So, we start from, you know, what's in the office, but then we go to, you know, what could be amazing. And amazing would be seeing many people as if they're just walking around in the room. You can see their pacing, you can see their arm gestures, you can see all of that. That's really the paramount of the ultimate design of telepresence. This is a room here, the immersion room. It's been used even by the U.S. government. You really do feel that people are right there. It's a form of this just stunning augmented reality, and the camera is actually mounted right at eye level, and you really feel like people are just right there in the room with you as well. But most importantly, you can see all the body language just like they're right there in the room.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is, you know, really remarkable technology right there. Collaborative, realistic group interaction. So, you know, while again, how do we have this collaborative group interaction and work remotely? You've talked about this to some degree, Steve, but, you know, elaborate. You know, we're really interested in your thoughts here.
Well, this was an interesting use case. It was actually a Hollywood studio that had some traditional video conferencing rooms, and they wanted a greater sense of immediacy, realism, and all of that. So in this situation, we used augmented reality to actually replace the existing room that the people are in at the remote location, and then we're inserting them into the actual room that's in one campus. And that really does create this sense of continuity that people are right here in the room with you. So on a level of realistic collaboration, how can it get even more realistic if you really, you know, believe the people are right there in the room with you, not on a projection screen or not on a TV set, but actually sharing the same physical space. So this is what we call natural augmented reality. There's no glasses involved or anything, and it's a very natural experience.
Yes, absolutely. Natural is something we love. Emotional connection. So we need to like our coworkers. We need to like the people we work with. Steve, talk to us about this and how we can utilize technology to enable that emotional connection.
Sure. So this one was very interesting because the application use, one primary one, is that it's always on. So often in companies, we have a formal meeting and people are going to meet, and then we're going to meet at this time and this. But with this solution here, one of the applications is actually, it's just there as an open portal. And so then someone could say, hey, let's just go down and talk in the holosuite. And it could be a couple of people there, but you can walk right up and another colleague from another part of the country or the world will walk in, and you guys are actually seeing each other, just standing there conversing with each other. This is just one example of the things that we can do with this, but talking about being able to have that kind of connection or emotional connection, just to think that someone could be standing right on the other side of the room and you're communicating, but you're actually on the other side of the globe. That's, we have to just think through all of these issues of lighting, perspective, camera positions, the quality of the image itself and how it's laid out, so forth. So this is all kind of what our passion is and our design objectives. The design objectives, first and foremost, start with not only the human factors, but how do we make all technology just disappear? That's the goal.
I
It's
love
just
it.
people.
Absolutely. And this Hollow Suite, oh God, gosh, it's really near and dear to my heart, especially, I've had the opportunity to be on, a number of these online conferences, and the way that they're staged and held is very, I would say, not conducive to a to an actual conference event at all.
Yep.
Not even withstanding the myriad of technical errors that go on, even if that was not there. I would love to go to an event, present at an event, engage at an event where I felt this Hollow Suite experience with life-size people, as opposed to just lots of tiny boxes and buttons and tabs. It would make all the difference. So I hear you on that. Also, variety. So there are very few employees that I've met that only want to, do one thing and just work from home. We need a variety to keep things interesting. And what about, let's say, a field worker or a maintenance technician who needs to go out to the field and fix equipment or solve a problem or survey something. So, many people in the past, in the COVID, situation, we prior to COVID, we would normally just send somebody out and also bring a team of people out. But with the issues of travel restrictions and the, social distancing, that it might just send one person out. So in that case, there are virtual collaborative tools that the user out in the field can actually provide his view of the world to one or a dozen other folks that are located in anywhere in the world, and collaboratively work on these different aspects of the project to make the solution go faster and make sure it's done right the first time. So, the last thing I wanted to comment on is just the whole work-life balance, because right now we're all in a state of adjustment where things are different, and we're finding our own ways to self-care and to just come up with some kind of a balance. But in living in the Los Angeles area, one of the things in Los Angeles is that the smog levels have gone to very, very nil. And as a result, this is actually a picture of my front door and just a tiny piece of my garden that is absolutely flourishing like it never has before, since the last 2 or 3 months that we've, reduced global emissions. And to me, nature is sort of my centering point. It's the way I kind of relax and get out of the technology world grind, if you will. And, Mother Earth is healing, if you will. And, I think that we're at an exciting point in time that we might be able to, continue this and continue a balance that, that works for not just businesses and companies, but also works for the, for the very land the very earth that our feet stand on every day, that bears our weight. So, Steve, any thoughts on that? Any final, thoughts about work-life balance?
The whole COVID issue has been enormously painful for a lot of people, and but there's always something good that can come out of this as well. And we are learning that companies can virtualize, and they're doing it. But we're also learning the experience isn't that great. I'm a little concerned, not a little bit, I'm very concerned that when this is over, we all go back to the same old. And I'm hoping that companies, schools, governments can start to realize that the technology, as we're using it with notebooks and computers and so forth, obviously is not a replacement for being there in person. But that doesn't mean it can't work and work amazing and completely virtual. It's really going to be remarkable. Just think about just in a couple of years from now, 5G and the capability of 5G and connecting wireless networks with these type of holographic and augmented reality experiences that you have in your workplace and maybe even in your home, and the sense of interpersonal connection. It's actually quite exciting. So I'm hoping that this just gives people a glimpse of where we all need to be aiming towards to really transform our cultures, our societies, and actually help the planet as well. I think it's really that important now.
And Steve, I feel you so much. You know, we're here to make this world a better place. I love your concept of, you know, that the technology shouldn't, it should feel like it's not there. And, you know, I think that this is a turning point, because we've got the technology. We've shown you just a few examples of how we can help the top 10. We've got dozens more. If we had another 30 minutes, Steve would share a lot of new things, new and exciting things with us, I'm sure. But, you know, the technology is here. It's affordable to corporations. It provides a very rapid return on investment. Even, let's say, virtual collaboration tools, you know, that it pays for itself in the first incident. So, you know, there is nothing that is stopping this technology from moving forward other than just the awareness of it. And when companies see how competitive they can be, how they can retain, how they can maximize the productivity of their workforce and get more output than expected and increase their profits, all with having a variable overhead cost model, it just makes sense all around. So, you know, in closing, first of all, I want to thank you, Steve, for you know, taking the time to share this presentation with us. And I want to thank our audience for listening to our session. And you know, first, definitely feel free to reach out to either of us directly. And in final closing, Steve, are there any parting thoughts, words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
I think we're fine. I think we've got it. And Marlo, I really appreciate you bringing me in today. I really do.
Wonderful. We got a wrap. Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful day.